All right, here we go. 7 p.m. Time for PBR Monday, Spring 2022, number 9. I'll let the room populate for a few seconds before we get going. As always, if you are watching this through the Tour of Idaho Facebook page, just make sure to give StreamYard your credentials, and that way, if you make a comment or ask a question, we'll know who you are. If you're coming at us through the motorcyclejazz.com Facebook or YouTube pages, it's a little more difficult there. You might want to just put your initials or better yet, put your first and last name with your comments so we know who you are. If there's any doubt about it, just put your first and last name and we'll be sure to get to your comment. So I see the room filling pretty rapidly, and I want to get to tonight because I actually have a couple guests tonight, and I want to spend some time with them. After we're done with my guests, I'll spend a little bit of time talking about Day 11, which is going to be a great day this year. Hello, Justin. Hello, David. Hello, Brian. We talked about that a little bit last week. Hello, Al. But I want to talk a little bit more about the routes this week, the ones that I've ridden fairly recently anyway. Hello, Drew. Then Day 12, there's not a lot to talk about because Day 12 is all mystery day, and one of our guests is helping me plan that mystery day this year, and it's just going to be killer. Then Day 13 hasn't changed any in the last 4 or 5 years. It's the same as it's always been. It's up. I will talk about Day 13 at some point, but it'll probably be the next PBR Monday. Hello, Jeff. Hello, Scott. And hello, Sean. Hello, David. There will not be a PBR Monday next week because I'm going to be with my family on another fifth wheel travel trailer vacation across this great land of ours. But without any further ado, I want to bring in a couple of guests that I have tonight. And let me just bring all this up here. Let me see if we can do better than that. Here we go. I like this format better. Introduce yourselves.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Jeff Stoess, tour event number 77 from 2020.
Yes, I'm two later, number 79 from 2021.
So that no one is offended, I invite people on for no apparent reason whatsoever. These guys are both pretty good friends of mine. They're tour vets. I think that you would benefit from listening to some things that they have to say. But just because you're not here doesn't mean I don't like you or anything like that. I get a lot of that. How come you haven't asked me on? I think everybody who's finished the tour in the last couple of years has been on a PBR Monday. I think I actually have kept it going in the winter just until I got all the teams on that have. Now, before that, all bets are off because that would mean I would be doing PBR Mondays for the rest of my life. But Jeff and Jim have both been on before. They're both friends of mine, full disclosure. And I think they both have some valuable things to say. But one of the things that I wanted to do tonight, because let me tell you a little bit about JS. Jeff runs something called the Kentucky Adventure Tour, the CAT. It's kind of like the Tour of Idaho and Kentucky. It doesn't have rules and things like that. It's just kind of show up and ride it. You can get on, get off wherever you want. But he is familiar with what it takes to run an event, and even an event like Jeff runs, the CAT, with the help of Kent Innes, who's another tour finisher, is an incredible hassle. I follow his group pretty closely. I look at it every day. And I sit back and I laugh crazily at some of the posts that I see on the page. Hey, Jeff, so you put, like I do, you put a thing on there just to see if people have read all of your rules and stuff to get into your Facebook group. And one of your questions is, what's the question with the 4x4?
It's will you be riding a motorcycle or in a 4x4?
And what's the most common answer?
16.
So I see stuff like this. I see pictures of guys in these Jeeps with stuff hanging off all over them. And they're griping about a tree they couldn't get around. I mean, even if you didn't have a saw, you could have drug it out of the way. So it's high comedy. But in all seriousness, I mean, the Kentucky Adventure Tour is an awesome thing. I've ridden a lot of it on mountain bikes when I lived back there, hiked some of it. And it's a pretty big undertaking that these guys have done. And being able to connect all the stuff that they did together, it's like, what, 1,200 miles?
Yeah, just about a little over 1,000.
It's incredible what those guys did. I think a much more difficult task in terms of planning than the Tour of Idaho is, because I have lots of options and those guys don't have as many options as I do. Then our other guest tonight, Jim Spooner, I'll introduce him. Of course, he was the first guy through last year. Team saws a lot. And I met Jim when he came to Pocatello at College Market. I looked at this guy and said, I had better play it completely straight, because this dude is one lean muscle from the top of that bald head of his down to his little toe. And I said, if I say anything this guy doesn't like, he's going to feed me through a key ring or something like that. I'll come out looking like a noodle 19 feet long. And then he got out and he kicked ass. So all you guys last year that bitched to me, well, I don't think Martin likes us anymore because he's making us do all this stuff. No, what I made you do was what Spooner did. He set this table last year. So we have all these fires, the routes off. You know, we have to detour people around routes. And when I was figuring out these reroutes for the rest of the teams, the deal is, you know, you're going to do at least as much work as Jim Spooner did. That guy was solo. On the fly, he and I were communicating with each other and figuring things out. And the guy was so good at navigation that it was easy peasy lemon squeezy. I'd say, okay, you got your maps? Yep, this is where I think you should go. And a half an hour later, I'd see on his PLB he'd successfully figured this all out, and he was good to go. But the biggest thing about the Jim Spooner epic was probably Heller-Simmons divide. You lost your bike off the side of a trail once, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Heller-Simmons divide was probably your fail-safe moment, was it not?
For sure. That was...
How many trees did you saw in a 4-hour period or drag your bike over?
The 600 you said last week, I think was a little bit of exaggeration, but that day, that was a long 2 miles, and that was... it was a long 2 miles. 2 miles, 3.5 hours, I think, something like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, 600 was an exaggeration, but what do you think it was? I mean, I personally drug my bike over a couple of hundred before.
I counted twice, like I was going to cut 10, and one time I only went 30 yards.
What do you think it was?
I personally that was one of the worst. I mean, when I got to Heart Lake, I was so exhausted. I sat down before I took the picture because I was like stumbling around off the bike. I was like, I'm going to fall down. And I'm going to end up where Jeff was, fucking down at the lake where I'm not supposed to be. But that was a moment right there. Like, and I knew it was coming. I kept telling you, I'm saving my energy for Heller-Simmons, state line. Because we knew it wasn't sod. We knew it wasn't going to be good. And it ended up, they'd sawed state line, but Heller-Simmons hadn't got it, and that's a bunch of deadfall, or a bunch of old burn that's just falling over. I mean, it's probably going to look the same as it did last year, this year. So
the burn and the pine beetle kills all along the tour. For those of you who don't know, every time the wind blows, stuff falls down, and some days you'll be riding in. If you ride back out the same way, you'll find stuff that's fallen down in your way on the way back out. It's incredible, the poor health of the forests along most of the Tour of Idaho. And Jim, if I'm not mistaken, the reason why state line wasn't an option wasn't that closed by fire?
It eventually ended up being, I got to Heart Lake, got through, and then I think 3 days later they closed all of that stuff. So you couldn't even get to Dry Saddle after that point. And so that's when you were like, hey, we're all going to Superior, or staying at the Cedars and then making your way over, that way. But it was, it didn't stay open long. So I went back the next weekend and they had the fire break. I mean, the entrance to the trail was just a clear cut. So.
All right. Well, while I have you guys here tonight, first thing I want to do is that there are some teams that have expressed some dissatisfaction with their team names, and they want to name their own teams. So I would like for you guys, since you've been around for a while, to give some historical perspective on what happens when you try to name your own team.
You end up getting named after a pink pony or something like that.
I think we should go with Sparkle Farts for one of them or something like that.
What were some of the good ones? What was about Ralph Jones came up with a great one about 8 or 9 years ago. What the hell was it?
There have been some good ones.
Who was that girl that was on? Oh, the Honey Boo Boos. That was one of the best ones ever. The Honey Boo Boos was a good one. Chamois Fat was another good one. And that guy had absolutely no sense of humor about that one either. He was pissed. He acted like he was still pissed off about being spanked at birth over that. What were some other classics?
They're on blanks.
Yeah, me too. I should have looked some of that stuff up today, but I have assembled my brain trust, and I can assure you guys that a new team name that the three of us are going to put our heads together. Sparkle Farts, I think, will absolutely be one of them. I like that. In fact, I nominate Sparkle Farts for a team name this year. Second. Call for the question. Aye. So somebody's name is going to go from whatever it was to Sparkle Farts. All right, JF, tell us about your tours of Idaho. You've been here twice to ride the tour. What made you want to come, and what made you want to come back, and what you took away from it?
In 2018, when we did it the first time, we heard about it from Team Hoosiers. Randy Block and Roger Lorem had talked to Kent first. Kent has spent a lot of time around Stanley. His wife's got some family there, so he'd been out to Idaho many times riding in that area, and he'd always wanted me to come out with him, but I was never able to. But then I started coming from a racing background. He started telling me about the tour and the challenge aspect of it, and that hooked me. I was ready to go once I heard about the earn a finisher number part. I couldn't say no to that.
And you showed up on a fairly big bike, too. Tell everybody about that.
Yeah, so I did it on a Suzuki DR350. I mean, at the time, it was either that or a 252 stroke, which didn't sound as appealing anyway. And it was a pretty good choice. I ended up, we didn't finish in 18. We made it to day 7 and froze to death. And then I had an issue with my ignition on Ant Hill and ended up having to walk out about 8 miles.
Does your 252 stroke have that same switch on it, Jeff?
It does not have a key switch. But that bike is even 1 year older than the DR, so I don't know if it would have been a better choice or not.
That was a total cheap shot. I apologize.
No, it's all good. I can take it. But yeah, so we went back to Kentucky with our tails between our legs, and then regrouped and came back in 2020. Both of us on the same bikes. Kent's on a WR 450. Had a smoother run, better weather. Kent did have an injury on the morning of day 2, and he somehow or another soldiered through it with a fractured wrist. I don't know how he did it, but yeah, we played a conservative game in 2020 just to keep it. By the end of the day, his wrist was swollen, so we were trying to keep our days as short as possible, but still get enough points. Which we got there the day 9, and we started second guessing ourselves if we had enough or not. So we went ahead and did the challenge section on day 10 just to be on the safe side. Well, it turns out we'd had just enough. We didn't even have to do that one, but it's always a good idea to have that extra one in your pocket just in case. But yeah, we did end up finishing, and it was probably the most fun, physically, mentally challenging things I've ever done in my 35 years of riding.
Hey, you're talking to a guy here who he's way too modest to tell you about it, but this guy is he's a stud racer. He's done everything.
Not anymore.
Tell everybody a little bit about your background racing, because I was astounded. I'm not that much of a racer, but when I delved into your background and found out what you'd done, it blew me away.
I raced GNCCs for nearly 20 years. Did a Best in the Desert a couple years. Lots of local stuff. I don't know. I'm drawing blanks. I've done a lot. I've been very fortunate over the years.
Well, I'm really pumped to have met you through the tour of Idaho. It's kind of weird too, because our paths have actually kind of crossed a lot over the years. But, we actually met through this. We're both from the same area. I think we were born and raised within about 100 miles of each other.
Yeah.
And but I didn't know you when I was back there. That was a long time ago, 25 years ago now.
Yeah.
Jim Spooner, same questions to you, brother. Tell us about what brought you here. Tell us a little bit about your trip last year and why you're still really active in our community.
Well, I mean, I think like I said, I came across in that fall of 20, winter 20, watching some PBRs. I'm pretty sure it was through Jimmy's video. I think I ended up stumbling across, and it took like 15 minutes, and I messaged my dad and said, we need to go do this. And so it's kind of, the race was on to get ready from there. And it was good timing with just things in life, and then things got a little bit hectic with the move, but it probably worked out for the best to spend the time that I needed to spend getting ready. And we got out there, got going. Dad had his accident on day one, and it changed perspective of everything, and I messaged you and was like, I want to try to keep going. And at that point I was like, I just want to finish day one, because we were I don't know, we were what, 4.5, 5 hours in, Martin, when
you were, yeah,
about that point we were just short of Oxford, I think, and so we got him out, got out, and then it was like, well, I think I have enough time to make it up. And from there, it was just plugging away day by day, and I wasn't ready to be solo at that point. I mean, it took a little bit of time to adjust to that, and
that's off to you, man. I can't imagine doing it solo. That's a scary feeling, being out there by yourself.
First guy through too.
It was. And I think looking back, and people like, so, you did it with somebody? I'm like, no, I did it by myself. They're like, what? And I'm like, and I think part of it was just that focus of being day by day, and not all the prep work, and Dad not being on make it out day one probably gave me more of that like game day focus that I'm around, of like, all right, this is the task. We're going to go just get this done, and then we're going to move on to the next day. And it probably helped that starting on day 5 there, 6, that the route was going like to the wayside. It was all going to be reroute, and I didn't have to really plan. I was just go out, ride, and figure it out along the way. And we talked last time kind of about my background with nav and map stuff, firefighting, and growing up hunting, and just being out. So, being out by yourself out in the woods a little bit. And so wasn't too uncomfortable, but then there's times, Jeff, I was thinking, I remember riding up, just getting past Anthill, just freaking wiped. And I just remember coming around the corner, and I saw something black to the left of me. And I was like, I don't care. I'm just like turning the throttle and going like, I was like, what? I don't think it's a bear, but whatever. We're just going to go. A lot, it's luck too, Martin. I mean, if I wouldn't have been going last year, if I'd been going this year, there's no way it's going to be a completely different July for people this year. I mean, the amount of people that got out those weeks before just ahead of me, I mean, there's people 3 days ahead of me, clearing stuff out that probably helped with my success for sure. So
yeah, we have a ton of people that go out. Sean Smith's here tonight. He's one of them. David Green here tonight. He's one of them. There were some dudes that went out last year and saw a lot of stuff. So even though, you still had a lot of sawing to do, it would have been, nearly insurmountable if those guys and others hadn't gotten out and paved the way. And we're going to try to do it again this year. Of course, our recommendation now is, with all the new stuff we added, we're recommending that everybody do what Sean Smith did last year, carry a saw. So you need to have at least one small chainsaw. These saws are so good now, and they're so tiny. You can get a really good saw that only weighs 8 or 9 pounds. And that's just what we're recommending that everybody do this year.
I would have taken a saw last year.
Yeah. It's that's partially my fault, because I've been telling people, look, I did it the first couple of years, but it's hard enough now that you probably don't want that saw up there all the time. You could probably get through with a handsaw, but Sean Smith changed my mind on that. He went out last year, and he was absolutely right, and I was wrong. He said, I think I will save more energy by carrying a chainsaw than I would burn up by using a handsaw. And I think he's absolutely right on that, because there are some days that I've exhausted myself sawing trees. and dragging my bike over trees. With a chainsaw, I would have been through the same thing. If it's 30 logs, that's hours if you're handsawing those things. It's maybe, a half an hour if you've got a chainsaw, if all you're trying to do is just get through them.
Yep.
Now, Jim, there's something I want to talk a little bit about your adventures with your dad last year, because there's something in that story that I think everybody needs to hear. So you were coming down off Oxford Peak, if I'm not mistaken, and your dad clipped something on that kind of gnarly ATV trail down near the bottom, right? Clipped a rock or something and had to get off?
It was just, we were coming to it. So it was in that downhill, deep rut, double rut, coming down to the saddle there, right where you make the turn to go up to Oxford. Okay. He went down right there, and that's when he dislocated the shoulder. That was the first time, because then we made it up to Oxford. And then when we came back down, he actually just reached a point like, hey, we're going to go this way. And it came out the second time. And that's when I knew. I was like, we got to get you out of here.
All right. And you did something remarkable, because there have been father-son teams that have done this before. There have been teams of brothers that have done this before. There have been people who are best friends that have done this before. And in many cases, I've watched a guy just ride off and say, dude, I spent a lot of money to get here. You're on your own. You didn't do that. And I mean, it's happened with fathers and sons before, where the dad got hurt and the son took off. Dad said, yeah, I can get out. I'll be all right. You go on. And the kid did it, which is something I would never in a million years do to my dad. I would not leave my dad on the trail anywhere. I wouldn't leave a partner of mine on the trail anywhere. I might leave a few ex-girlfriends on the trail somewhere. But other than that, if you were my riding partner, I made a commitment to go with you, and that includes taking care of you if things get hurt. And that's something that used to piss me off in mountaineering all the time. I'd see people trying to do these big mountains, and Everest is notorious for this. Somebody in your team gets hurt, you just leave them there in the snow. Yeah, I'll get you on the way back down, but I'm not stopping right now. You didn't do that. You rode out with your dad, burned a lot of time that day, because you got to be to Pocatello by midnight. You knew this, but you still made sure your dad got to where he was safe. You got him all the way back to your car, right?
We got back to it was an overpass there, just up, came down to that Cherry Creek. Yeah, we came out Cherry Creek, and then that first worked our way to that one. It's just an overpass, and got him there. And my uncle, he was just in Pocatello, he drove us down, and I just want to make sure he was back and knew exactly. And he was there. He was like, "Yeah, I know exactly where you guys. I'm on the service road." And at that point, I just started. That's when I was sort of trying to think about going on when we were making that drone out there on the road. Like we were off the trail. We were just on the road. I didn't have to worry too much about hey, because he went down once coming down that to the campground there, that steep stuff. He went down once, and luckily didn't land on his shoulder. But we're just like, we just need to get to the road. And then I was like, man, it's a lot of work. And a lot of work for him. I mean, he did a lot of the bike work for us both on getting ready. And so, but I wasn't going to leave him even at the campground. I mean, I could have been like, hey, we're at this campground, I just want to make sure it was easy for him to, for my uncle to find him, and they were good. And that's when, I knew it was going to be hard. Like, 'cause even at that point, I hadn't talked to you yet. I didn't talk to you on the phone until we got to the freeway.
Yeah.
And, and I appreciate that it saved a few hours for just being able to go the solo route the rest of the way. So,
yeah. So, and I want to make this, I got fussed at for that. Well, why are you making an exception to the rules for this guy? I would have made the same exception for anybody in the same situation if they behaved honorably instead of behaving like a dipshit, which is what you're doing when you leave your partner in the middle of the trail somewhere and say, dude, I got to make Pocatello. The Tour of Idaho is great and it's fun, but there are more important things in life, and one of them is having a sense of honor. And leaving your dad or your brother or your riding partner abandoned somewhere is not an honorable thing. If you'd have done that, I might have made you ride the 3-person route just out of spite. but that's the reason why I made that exception. I have made exceptions to that throughout the history of the Tour of Idaho. If something comes up that's not your fault and it's pretty clear that we should modify the rule for you a little bit, in most cases we'll modify that rule. And it was, as it turns out, I think you could have made it to Pocatello before midnight anyway, because You got in fairly early that day. Wasn't it like 7 or 7:30?
No, I think it was 8:30, 8:45. It was close.
Okay.
It was just before. I feel like it's just before 9. It would have been. I think I could have made it. If I would have, I probably wouldn't have stopped. And I took some time in Hot Springs. I took some time in there and kind of make sure I kind of was ready to go for that last push. I mean, I think at that point I would have, if I was doing the full route, I would have just had to, that 45 minutes was a waste of time at that point, and just had to push on and see if you could have made it. So.
Well, and then your whole tour was inspirational. Everybody followed it, and everybody was just going, holy cow, that guy kind of set a high bar this year, which you certainly did. Now, tell everybody what you do for a living, because I think it's informative for, why you were able to do physically some of the things that you did.
Well, I'm an athletic trainer, so I work in the sports medicine in the college setting. So I work with the Washington State football. And so, I'm just kind of been for my whole career professionally around the sports medicine and performance field. And so it's kind of just part of my lifestyle. Every morning I'm at the gym at 5 because it's hard working around guys that are Division I football players and not ask them to do certain things when you're not kind of doing the same thing yourself, or at least living by the same guidelines a little bit on taking care of yourself. So. That's kind of, fitness was a big. I mean, I haven't raced anything like Jeff raced at all. Local races, and I think I rode one day. We raced one day of Idaho City once, and that's about as close as I got to riding any of the big stuff. And so it was a lot of the fitness stuff. I think they helped get me through. Not being the most skilled rider, but being able to push through and kind of put up with the ass kicking you get every day and willing to go do it again the next.
I've long maintained that there are basically 3 ways that you can get through the Tour of Idaho. You can be a super good rider like Jeff or Jimmy or somebody like that. We've had Carrie Barton and her team. We've had people that have come through here before that are A+++ or pro level riders. A bunch of these Canadian guys that have come down and done it that way. They're super good riders. Or you can be just an incredibly fit person, fit and strong. Jim Spooner's that guy. Talented rider, surely enough, but the fitness and the fact that, he is such a good athlete and so used to training and working out that he has the focus and the athletic and mental focus and discipline to push through. Then the third way is to be a complete schmuck like me, but just to have spent so much time in the outdoors that that you can do it. After a while from climbing that, today's going to suck. It's going to be long. I'm going to be really tired when I get to the end of the day. But, short of a boulder rolling down and crushing me, I'm going to get through this. And most people, if you look at a Venn diagram, most people have those skill sets sort of overlapping somewhere that successfully complete the tour. There are a lot of people that come from racing backgrounds, but they kind of have some of those other moves as well. And I think it's interesting that the 3 of us kind of represent positions on that Venn diagram a little bit. We have the expert racer, we have the super fit athlete, and we have the geezer that's just pretty good in the outdoors.
And I think the racer part, I think, is lower on the pole than the fitness. Take what you know out of racing and kind of throw it out, because it's more about conservation and saving your energy than racing. That's what it's all about. I mean, I have friends of mine that I ride with that'll watch my helmet cam videos and say, why are you going so slow? I'm like, well, if I ride the way I normally ride, there's no way we would have ever finished. I just don't have that much, or I don't have that much energy to ride a race pace for 240 miles in a day. So it's about being conservative and being smart and being physically able to do those long days in the saddle. So racing doesn't mean as much when it comes to the Tour of Idaho as other types of events.
We talked to Jimmy, a couple weeks ago, and same deal. It's when I was riding behind Jimmy, or sometimes I thought I was going to run over him, especially early in the day. And then it didn't occur to me till the end of the day when he was miles ahead of us that this guy rode the same pace all day long and did not wear himself out the way we did. We were on the gas, on the brake. And really, really talented riders and racers, the ones that are truly talented and truly at the top of their field, they're kind of used to riding efficiently. You know, you don't need to, all you got to do is be ahead of the second place guy. It doesn't matter whether you're a mile or 10 feet, you still win the race, right?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so let me throw a question out for both of you, and I'm going to throw it out to Jim first and then Jeff. So you got 5 minutes to tell these folks that are lining up this year and potentially for next year. We got 21 teams this year. For the first time in a long time, I don't know most of these people. I know a couple of the teams pretty well, and they're both returning teams, but I don't know most of these people, so I have no personal connection with most of these folks. You guys are out there, and you have some advice. You got 5 to 10 minutes worth of advice to give to these folks that are showing up this year. Jim, what is it? Go down the list.
I mean, the first thing I'm going to say, and I'm sure everybody will say it, but you listen. I mean, Martin said about 80% or so, or whatever you want to throw out there, 90% of what everybody says that matches up, that has done this, you need to listen to that. And there's probably the 10% that we're all going to disagree on and or whatever. But that 90%, that matters, and it's been said multiple times for reasons. Like, don't think that it's just blowing smoke or trying to do it. You know, this is how Martin wants it done, so that's the only reason he wants it done that way. It's for a reason. Like, it's either about energy conservation, or it's about simplicity, or it's about just a preparedness. Like, you can't just show up and turn on your GPS for the first time and think you're going to go ride point to point. You know what I mean? There's not a line on the screen, guys. Like, there might be 8-10 miles to the next waypoint. I mean, you're going to have to zoom out, be like, well, this is the trail. And I know that's what's hard for some people, the idea of you're just going to start a trail and ride it until the trail ends. It's because of just how we are with technology now. Like, we just follow GPS wherever it tells us to go. But listening to what those things that get echoed from every guest, from Martin, and what's from the shows from the year before. I mean, I felt like I got a lot of the repetitive thing, even going back after I found out and listened to the shows from before that, of the things that kept coming up, like when Jeff Jensen was on. I mean, I think with a lot of things that Jeff talked about, and his experience, I mean, his attempts before and the things that can happen is another thing. Like, there's things that are going to be out of your control that you're not going to be able to prep for. And Jimmy said it last week. Like, you can prepare all you want, and you can think you're dialed and something's going to happen that you didn't plan for. I did not plan for my dad to have to go solo from day one. I did not plan for that. And I told you that. I did not look at solo route day one. I had to figure that out. I was playing catch up all day that day. And then it was figuring out all the changes from there. I mean, that was a chunk of my day off. Was like, I'm going to have to learn the solo. Like, where am I going solo? Because I didn't really start looking until day 4 or 5, like when we were prepping. I did not think about that. I wasn't ready for the type of, I don't think anyone would have been ready, but the type of rerouting that we had to do. I mean, how many days did you change day 6 before I got there?
It was a mess.
I mean, you're like, already this. And we're going to do it. Hell with it. Just get there and just go right. We'll figure it out. I think that's a big one. I mean, you got to be able and to adjust and be ready for the unexpected, because that's what's going to happen. You're going to have. I mean, I trusted. I heard what certain people had said about, like, having a rescue kit. I mean, including Martin. Like, I was like, okay, we're buying the legit thing. We're not half-assing this. I'm not skimping on this. We're just going to buy it. It's worth, like, what if what happens? Well, day 5, about as far away as you could have gotten. I mean, I was a quarter mile from the Frank Church boundary on probably the farthest out. I mean, Van Horn. What is that? Van Horn Lookout.
Yeah,
right
one of
there?
the most remote areas of the tour where nobody's coming along except another tour rider.
And just not paying attention, like just tired. I mean, tired, clip a rock, and 60 feet down the rock slide. And what are you going to do? Like, so, that was just that you have to be prepared for that. And sure, I guess I said you could have panicked and hit the SOS button, but I popped up and was like, well, there's 2 trees. I got 2 ways to drag this thing up here. Let's do this thing. Let's get it back on the trail. And so I think those are big ones. But in the other is like enjoy it. Like don't. And that was part of like with the hard part of Dad not being there. Sure, it's like not having all the work going into it and not being there to kind of reap the rewards of that work, but to enjoy like where you're at and what you do. I mean, you're riding, you're going to go places that hardly anyone goes, and especially this year. The new stuff that Martin has down south is going to be incredible. And so you got to enjoy it. And like, if I wouldn't have been able to keep going, I probably would have wrote something. Like it was like looking back, it was like one of the best freaking 11 days that in the last decade of my life. Outside of having kids, it changed for me too personally. Like that event brought me back to motorcycles, which I had really moved away from. Of like the love for it and enjoying it, and like now how much in my family we enjoy it and that part of it. Like you got to go out and enjoy this. Like enjoy getting the bike prep, enjoy the map prep, like enjoy the fact that you're just going to get directions one morning and go ride some trail. I know people were. I've had a couple DMs about like I don't know. Like I'm kind of what's it going to be like north of Norfolk? Well, it's going to be awesome. I'm not, we're not putting out like Devil's Ridge or anything like that, but you're going to go ride some stuff and be out in the middle of nowhere and just be like, well, there's trail XYZ. Let's turn left. And we're going to ride it until we hit trail 1, 2, 3 and going to ride it. You know what I mean? So, that's my big thing. Just enjoy the process. And, and I know some people get worked up about everything and all that, but that's for me, man. It is kind of love riding dirt bikes is freaking blast, man. And just go have fun doing it. Listen to, go have fun doing it. Listen to what everybody's telling you. The stuff you hear every time you talk to somebody that's the same thing. Check your ego a little bit, because I think we all had our egos checked by the tour at some point. Like you got into it. Like Jeff, to have have your ignition switch or your key be the like, how frustrating is that for like in all the prep, like that's what that failed me. You know what I mean? Like, especially where you were. This thing, I was talking about that today. I was talking to my dad on the way back here home from work about, and he was like, and they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, to be honest, I don't know what the hell we're talking about tonight. Martin said, hey, you want to be on tonight? And I was like, but we both had, in different ways, pretty unique experiences. And, to be where you were at, to have that happen. And the way you talk about it, it's, you're so calm, cool, collected about it. But I'm sure at that moment, I can only imagine the level of frustration. The words that you're probably saying were not the ones that you were saying on here, I'm sure at that point. So
thanks for helping me rub that in, by the way. That's awesome.
That wasn't my intention by any means, but
no, it's all good.
No, but I'm drafting you into the effort.
Appreciate it.
No, you nailed it. I was walking out Fish Creek. We'd forgot the bear spray in the van when we left Malad. So I'm walking out Fish Creek with my bag in one hand and a machete in the other hand, like I'm going to do something to a bear with a machete. Pouring down rain, 40 degrees. Yeah, I couldn't hardly keep my eyes open. It was miserable.
All right. Before we get to Jeff with the same question, Jim, there's a question directed at you. What type of food did you pack for Trailside snacks? It's from Jake Hindies, I think.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm uniquely special in the fact that like all the stuff we use every day in work. So like hydration wise, I actually carried something called Right Stuff. It's developed for NASA. It's a pretty unique electrolyte solution. That was my thing that I drank. I have one every morning. That was like my way to stay ahead of the curve, per se, the best you can. I mean, this is where I disagree with Martin. I filtered creek water and drank it, and knock on had no problems with that. But snack wise, a lot of stuff that's either that is carb based, really. Obviously some protein stuff, but a lot of it was just either whatever I could find at candy bars, freaking granola bar, whatever you could find at the store. Because there's no way you're leaving Malad with all your, you could, if it was where you leave with just Kate bars, but you're going to end up in some place that doesn't have Kate bar, and so you're going to have to figure out whatever you get your hands on. But I ain't gonna lie. There's certain days where I think about, I don't know how, like, if I really stopped to eat that, like really eat, like I would just, I'm gonna eat a bar real quick, but I don't know. Looking back, I can't think of being like, oh man. I mean, maybe on day 6 when I think I came off of Ditch Creek, and that's about the only time I can remember sitting at the lookout out at was like Grant. Is that Grant's?
Granite Mountain.
Granite Mountain. I was second thinking myself at that point of what the hell I was doing out there. And I was like, what are you doing, man? You need to quit. You got to quit. Ditch Creek kicked my ass. I was like, what am I doing out here? And I can remember sitting there for a good time to sit there and eat. But yeah, just stuff like that, stuff that's high cal, that's going to get you that energy going. Some energy truths too. That was stuff, some quick carb stuff, especially after some big side hill issues, like that one I had. That kind of helped me get things back. So I was pretty shot after that. When I got to Helder Simmons Divide, there wasn't anything that was saving me from that. That was just.
I've long maintained, and you're the expert in this, and I am not, but I've long maintained that at some point you're in such caloric debt, you're in energy debt once you get very far into the tour. At some point, a calorie is a calorie. It just about doesn't matter where it comes from. You just got to eat something.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not like, I love Kate. Kate's bars are fine because they taste good. But at some point, anything that you can put in your mouth at a service station is going to give you some calories. And you're burning the calories so fast, the difference between a Snickers bar and a Kate's bar, as far as I'm concerned, is irrelevant at that point because you're in such caloric debt. Do you disagree with that?
No, not at all. I mean, that's when you're in caloric debt like that, and the days are snowballing at that point, right? You just cannot. You get in late, and you miss dinner. You get the challenge and nothing's open. Like whatever you can eat, I think that's the most important thing at that point. It doesn't matter what you're eating. It doesn't matter where it's probably coming from. Whatever you can get your hands on at that point. I mean, I don't know how much. How much weight he lost during the tour? Is that what he put up?
Yeah, he put 15 to 20 pounds, and I've usually lost around 10 every time I've done it.
I think when I got back, I think I was 11 or 12 pounds, down, and I didn't care. Like I'll say, like there's probably different times here I'm pretty particular about what I eat and what kind, that at that point on what I'm taking in. I didn't care as long as I was freaking eating something. Like I didn't care if it was fried chicken wings or whatever it was. Like, give me some calories. Let's just eat that. So I'm with you, Martin. That's the most important thing, just to have something to eat.
I can remember soloing some climbs, some big wall climbs, or not big wall, but slowing some alpine climbs and stuff back in the day. And I would come down out of the mountains, and I was the kind of guy that would like eat really good my whole life. Tried to eat the best food I could, and I'd walk into a pizzeria, eat 3 of the greasiest, nastiest pizzas I could. I would be so hungry, and you're so down on calories at that point. You will eat anything. You're thinking about eating grass on the way down, although it won't do you any good. And on the tour, for those of you who haven't done it yet, you're going to feel that way a lot. You're going to feel like somebody beat you with a bag of hammers. You're going to be tired. You're going to be sleep deprived. You're going to be hungry. You're going to be really thirsty. And the thing you have to pay attention to is that hunger and that thirst. You got to keep consuming calories at a ferocious rate, and you got to drink more water than you thought was possible in a day, or else risk severe dehydration.
I'm with it. I mean, I don't know how many times I was like, I don't need to top off my camel pack. And I was like, no, I better do that. I'm gonna go do that. And so that twice of it, I ran out and was, luckily we came across another creek within, maybe 30, 40 minutes of that. But it, if you're going to filter water, like anytime you get a chance to fill back up, you stop over and take that chance. So.
So Jeff, same set of questions to you. You got 15 minutes. Tell everybody what they need to know based on your experience and your wisdom.
Yeah, the first thing is map study. I know you try to beat it into people, but it's so important for everybody on that team to do the map study. Like when Kent and I were doing it, we the first time before 2018, we did them separate. So we planned it out our own way, and then we emailed each other's files and saw where the differences were. And then we got on the phone together and said, okay, which one of us has made a mistake here? Let's get it corrected. So that way we were both learning the trail long before we ever went out there. And I'd never been to Idaho before, so it's totally new to me. And he'd only rode a little bit of it around day 4 or 5, somewhere around there. But we calculated before in 18, we each spent about 8 hours of mapping per day. So we had about 80 hours in mapping before we ever even loaded up the van. And that was huge. When we would get to a turn, we would look at the GPS just to make sure we were right, but we pretty much knew which way to go without even looking. And that's huge. And there's times when you're going to have to stop and talk to each other and work out something that you might be wrong on or might be confused on. And if it's one person doing all that mapping, man, it sure puts a lot of pressure on that person. So I'd say everybody on the team needs to be doing their own mapping and then combine them and then see where their differences are, because you can learn a lot from each other by doing it that way as well. Other than, let's see, I guess the next thing is leave early. I can't stress that enough. The first morning we left Hotel Malad at 3:15. We were at the start on the state line at 4. And I don't regret that one bit. Yeah, it's hard to get up that early and get rolling. I'm not an early person, but if you don't, what ends up happening, and the tour vets kind of use this term called the snowball effect. If you don't get that early start and you don't get in that night, like Jim was saying in Chalice, if you don't get in before those gas stations close, you're going to have to wait until 8 the next morning to get gas. And right there, you're 3 to 4 hours behind for the next day. And it just snowballs every day. You get so far behind and you can't make up for it. So getting that early start and getting in before the stores and the gas stations close is huge. And getting that little bit of rest in the evenings and getting hydrated and getting your nutrition in, that makes a successful tour, barring luck. But that's a biggie. I think there was only one day that we left after the sun came up, and that was in Wallace, because that's a short day. And even then it was 6:30 when we left. But that was the only day that we didn't have the headlights on when we drove away from the hotel.
Just to interject here briefly, I love Jimmy Lewis like a brother, and I respect almost everything that he says. But last week when he says, yeah, I don't understand these guys getting up so early to get out there, that was just crazy talk. That's that 10% of stuff that we're all going to disagree on. I don't know anybody that agrees with Jimmy on that, because you need to get an early start. If for no other reason, it's cool riding time. You're not burning up when you're riding before the sun gets up. And if something goes wrong, you got a whole day ahead of you to sort it out. But I'm sorry, please continue.
That's right. Especially like you were saying in the southern part of the tour, when it's hot, man, it's really nice to roll out of that hotel and being 60, 65 degrees and then getting as much of that, much as the riding done before the evening heat is a biggie. And then, like I was saying earlier, riding at a pace that gets you to where you need to go in a reasonable amount of time, but also conserving energy. Fine line, you got to walk. You go too slow, that snowball effect's going to start. If you go too fast, you're probably not going to finish. So it's just keep knowing your pace, where you're not burning a lot of energy like you would if you were going fast. That was a biggie for us. And I got to give Ken some props to that, because there was times where he the pace he rides a little bit, maybe say in racing he rides one class slower than me. But he kept me from overriding what I should have been, and that was good looking in hindsight. I'm glad, because I didn't need to be going any faster than we were. Like I say, looking at my videos, it didn't look like we were going that fast. But that's what it took to conserve energy enough to get us through every day.
Does Kent still have that big ass van, that Mercedes van
Oh,
that
yeah.
he had?
Oh yeah.
So I drove these guys down. I let people I know park in my yard and stage from my place. And I drove these guys down to Malad that first morning, and I drove their van back. And he's got this big fancy Mercedes hauler, big tall thing. And I'm driving back, and a big gust of wind hits that thing, and the traction control kicked in, and I literally shit my pants in the front of that truck.
Yeah, it's
the whole
a
thing,
wind
like the
control.
steering wheel jerks out of your hand, the brakes come on. It's like it does its own thing. You're not driving the thing anymore going down the road. And I still get the heebie-jeebies every time I think of that.
Yeah, he's still rocking his printer, man.
What else, Jeff?
I think like Jim was saying, he covered a lot of stuff that I had in mind. Nutrition, most of the days you can get a decent lunch. You're going to go through towns like Catherine and places like that. Getting food isn't that big of a deal, but there's a couple days where you don't have to eat lunch on the trail. And we ate cake bars. We bought some of those little disposable peanut butter, little cups of Jif peanut butter. We dip those cake bars in that peanut butter. It was great. We also had the little bags of Pedialyte that you mix with like 16-ounce bottle of water. Those were really good, and I think that really helps us keep hydrated.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Pedialyte. I think it's good stuff. I don't have the high-tech stuff that Jim Spooner has that you only get from NASA.
That's
I'll
the
get
elite.
we'll strip some down your way.
All right.
And you just got to keep pushing. There's times, I love single track. I love hardcore single track, but man, there's times when you just cannot wait for one of those single track trails to end and be on an ATV trail.
It's Jimmy Lewis. I love riding motorcycles, but today might have been a bit much even for me.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We were up on Stevens Peak and we were just cussing, and that would be a fun trail. Any other time on a two trail, not loaded with bags, but man, that trail couldn't have ended soon enough. And we got to that ATV trail, and it's like, oh my god, it's amazing how just the exhaustion just wears on you. It's unbelievable. But have fun with it. It's all about fun. When we got to the end, we did each other and said, would we ever do this again? No way. Well, now, a little bit of time passes, and you're thinking, man, I'm missing it now.
So Stevens Peak, somebody sent me, it was one of the Buckeyes, the Sandwich Kids. One of those guys posted a picture and tagged me in it a while back and said, do you know where this is? And I said, I think it's Stevens Peak. And he goes, well, why do you think it's Stevens Peak? And I said, because I've never been there during the day. I've only seen it by moonlight. That day used to be a long day. And we used to go all the way from Lowell to Wallace in a single day. And the only time I ever rode Stevens Peak was at about 2 a.m. Beautiful moonlit night, but it was about 2 a.m. And I think the reason I didn't think it was a very bad trail is because I couldn't see what was off to the left side.
I've never been one to get arm pumped, but man, on that trail, I was like Popeye, just from the tent.
There's some side hill issues there, but I'm completely oblivious.
It's bad.
It's a little ways down there. It wouldn't be
Yeah,
bad.
just look at it in
Long way to get up.
To look at it in pictures or video doesn't do anything, but when you're there and how narrow it is, and the rocks that you got to crawl over when you're on it, and knowing that bear grass is slick, if you go off, it's going to slide.
Yep.
It's tense.
There's a trail that's on T2 called Lone Eagle Peak, or what used east-west across southern Idaho that I haven't paid any attention to in a bunch of years. I think I call it T4 now. But there's a trail called Lone Eagle Peak, and it has the worst side hill I've ever been on in my life. You could literally see all 1,000 feet down to the dirt road you're going to end up on if you've come off this trail. It's got big washouts and stuff on it. Where the trail tread is good, it's good, but it's terrible in most places. And I rode all the way up that thing one afternoon by myself and got to the top, and top of the trail is just gone. There's just all this bear grass and stuff all over the place, buck grass. Trail just ends. So as it's getting dark, I realize I have to ride 6 miles back down this trail. And I got to it. I got to the first washout just as the sun was going down. By the time I got my bike very gingerly across that, it was completely dark. Rest of the way down took about 15 minutes. When it's dark and you can't see that big drop, all you see is a trail this wide. Man, I think I could keep my front wheel on that trail. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. Either of you, anything else before we get on and start talking about day 11 here?
Just take it day by day and have fun with it.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's what day by day, and what Jeff said, it's like, I think just echoing a lot of that. I mean, that he hit it on the head. He being early, getting in, having fun day by day. I mean, that was, everybody was asking, what are you going to do when you get to day 8? Because we knew that was, I'm on day 4. Like, I got to worry about day 4. When I get to I'm worried about day 5. Because right now, I don't know what happens on day 5. Like, you just, between the weather and all that, you just worry about what's right in front of you. Don't worry about the next day. Don't worry about if it's going to close. It'll all work out. And, I mean, between everybody involved in this group, if Martin doesn't have the answer, he knows there's somebody here that does. And you're going to get the information to make it through. You know what I mean? So you just don't worry about that stuff. Just, like Jeff said, he hit it, I think, day by day and have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we have never failed to get a group through. We've never failed to route people around fires and stuff. People that get stuck, I don't think we've ever failed to get help in, to get somebody. Jeff, you guys got out on your own, but we helped arrange a ride. It was a friend of ours that came in, I think, and loaned you guys his truck, didn't he?
Yeah, Dan Holheim. Sure did.
So when you're and Jim's advice is great. Again, this is another thing that comes from climbing. When I was doing big walls, I didn't think I got 36 more pitches to go. I have 1 more pitch to go. The other 35 are irrelevant if I can't get up this. And that's the way you should think about these trails. I don't even think about it in terms of a full day, other than I need to get going early because things I do now affect what's going to happen 12 hours from now. So I think about a full day that way, but when I'm out there, I think about it trail by trail. Look, I got to get from this end of the trail to the other. That's my task right now. If I make it to the other end of the trail, then I'll worry about what happens next. But I think you reduce your focus, just like in climbing. In some case, it's not even this pitch. I got to make it through this 15 feet. Then I can worry about what comes after that. And the more you can focus on what's directly ahead of you, which is the thing that you can affect in the here and now, I think the easier it is to reduce the whole scale of the tour down to manageable chunks. If you think about, I got to ride 2,200 miles in 13 days, that's not a very good strategy, in my view anyway, for planning it. I think you have to reduce it to, I got to get up this hill right here. Then after that, I got to ride 10 miles down the single track. I'll worry about everything else after I worry about that.
Don't eat the whole pie at once. Eat it pieces at a time.
Yep. There you go. Thank you guys both. I talk with Jeff just about every day. I talk with Jim Spooner every few days or so. These guys are friends of mine. I'm really one of the best things about the tour was getting to meet these two guys. It's the thing that's kept me going for the last 17 years. The thing I'll miss when it's all over, and one more season after this. But thank you guys for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. I know you guys will be hanging around, but right now I want to get into a little bit of day 11 stuff before we wrap it up tonight. So again, thanks very much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having us.
For sure. Thank you guys. It was awesome. Happy too.
Cheers, you guys. All right. So I'm going to put these guys on mute. They're both still there. Whoops. Need to add me. There we go. Now we got it. All right. So once again, thanks to Jim and Jeff. They're both super good dudes. And again, the best thing about the Tour of Idaho for me, what I get out of it, you couldn't pay me enough to do this job. What I do this job for is I've met some of the highest quality people I've ever met through the Tour of Idaho. I feel the same way as I did about climbing, and to a slightly lesser degree about being a musician. You know, some of the people that I met were what made it worthwhile. You make lifetime friends, people you share great adventures with, people that have been through some certain things. There's a real brother-at-arms camaraderie about all this because everybody's been out there and been through the same thing. And so they all know what the deal is. But what I promised last week that I would get through this week is a little bit of specifics about the day 11 stuff. So I took you through a little bit of day 11 last week, and I'm looking at the map here right now, and I want to blow it up just a little bit. Everybody follows basically the same route out of either Lowell or Elk City, and we told you last week you can take either of those that you want. It doesn't make any difference to us. And everybody takes the same route up to Canyon Junction. Now, when I say everybody takes the same route, I should say routes because there's a solo variation early on. Peat King Creek Trail versus Peat King Ridge Trail. The soloists take Peat King Ridge. Everybody else takes Peat King Creek. But basically, everybody goes to Waldy Lookout, and then everybody goes to Canyon Junction, and that's where you see all that black on the map. And there's, I think, I don't know, there's 20 different variations, 23 different variations you can take from there. Depending on the size of your team and whether or not you've pre-ridden any of it, you have to earn a certain number of points and a certain number of challenge points. There's challenge points that I sprinkled around liberally everywhere. And we talked last week, and it talks in the write-up about how, with just a few exceptions, Castle Creek being one of them, for instance, there's no way to Castle Creek is right off of dirt road. So you could be, that road is a transfer section. So it's perfectly legitimate to claim Castle Creek without having ridden, say, Sherman Creek or anything else that's nearby. That's okay. But if you want to claim Fish Butte, you really need to ride one of those single track trails that are in the area. And if there's any ambiguity when you put together your route, if you're trying to figure it out, I'll be glad to get to tell you, yeah, I think this one's okay. This one you really need to ride a single track to claim it. And I'll clear all that up. I'll even clear it up when you're out there. You can send me a message through your PLB saying, this is the route that we took. Can we claim this challenge point? And I'll say yes or no. And in general, I'm pretty generous about that stuff. I just don't want anybody doing anything like there's one up off the Pot Mountain Trail that you don't have to ride the Pot Mountain Trail to get. You can just go up the dirt road. The reason I put it where I put it is I wanted you to be able to get it if you rode either the Pot Mountain Trail, then rode down that dirt road, or rode up that dirt road to get to the Elizabeth Mountain Trail. But what I don't want you to do is just ride up the dirt road, ride back down, and claim the challenge point. And I think everybody understands that when you explain it to them. But again, I'll be happy to render an opinion about what you have to do to claim that challenge point if there's any ambiguity about it. And a lot of them, it's obvious. I mean, they're in the middle of a single track trail, so there's only one way to get there. But I want to talk a little bit about these various trails. The first one is out Middle Butte. That's a dirt road, but it gets you out to Fish Butte. And from Fish Butte, you can go down Fish Creek, or you can go down a quad trail. You can take the Fish Butte Trail down to the road. Then you can take the Fish Creek Trail back up. And then what we have told the soloists to do in previous years is take that quad trail back up to Fish Butte, then ride the road back out to Lolo Motorway. You can also go up Ant Hill from there. Another trail in that area is Sherman Creek. What I can tell you about all those trails is this. The Fish Butte Trail is the easiest of all those trails. It's got some scary side hilling on it. And most of the side hilling on the tour is more psychologically oppressive than it actually is physically oppressive. Some of the side hilling on the Fish Butte Trail, at least in my view, is genuinely hazardous because what happens is you're on this decomposed granite, which is slicker than snail snot even when it's totally dry. And what you'll notice if you look at the terrain there is that it gets steeper the farther down those slabs you go. There's a couple places where the trail just kind of side hills up these slabs. If you were to lose it there, you would be in genuine peril. You would lose your bike for sure. I don't think you'd kill yourself, but you might really take a wild tumble that would beat you up. And your bike would be 800 feet down in a ravine, I'm pretty sure. So you have to be a little bit careful on that trail. But in terms of difficulty, it's not difficult at all, as long as the mountain lions leave you alone. Jeff can tell you all about that. The Fish Creek Trail is a little more technically difficult. The problem with it is that there's some side hilling above a creek. Sometimes there are rock steps on these side hills that you're not going to like. It's 6 of one, half dozen of another, which way to go. I think it's roughly equal in both directions. Some of the steps are a little harder one way or the other, but I don't know that there's a big difference in which way you ride it. I also don't know that there's a big difference in the way that you ride Fish Butte. I like riding up side hill better than I like riding down it. That's just me. So you can take that into account. Ant Hill would be not a bad trail at all, except there's a rut about 3 feet deep in the middle of it. And it's every team the last few years has done some variation of the same thing that I do, which is deploy my rescue kit and just drag it up like 4 switchbacks and then get back on the bike and ride it out. There's some guys that are strong enough to huck their bikes up, stuff like that. But I don't know anybody that's actually ridden it on their bike. It's a bear. So it's an easy trail that due to erosion has just become extremely difficult. It's like 3 or 4 switchbacks down near the bottom that are going to give you all your trouble. And there's no way around them. It's decomposed granite. The trail is where it needs to be, but too many people have gone up that hill and really gunned it trying to get their bikes around the switchback, and you've just got incredible erosion. And I don't know what anybody's going to do about that. Then there's the Sherman Peak or Sherman Creek Trail. Sherman Creek is an interesting trail. Most of it's pretty casual. There's some side hill on it, but there's like 100-foot long section that Jimmy named the Erzberg Boulders section, where you got these big rocks you got to ride over. If you're a soloist, that can be quite difficult because there's nobody to spot you. There's nobody to help you push your bike up over those boulders. I haven't ridden that trail in years, but people have reported that the Erzberg Boulders are still pretty serious to be, and it's also wet. There's some seepage coming down through there. If you're coming down that trail, it's not nearly as bad, because you can push your bike down the rocks much more easily than you can drag it up. If you're on a 2-person team, that's not as serious because you can have some help. And if you're on a 3-person team, then you got spotters, people to help you push and pull and tug. It's not as serious at all. But I would treat that trail, if I'm going down it, if I were a soloist, I would feel comfortable going down it. But I wouldn't feel comfortable recommending that you go up it on a loaded tour bike unless you're with at least one other person. As always, this can change. Maybe a trail crew went in there last year and worked on it. I doubt it because those people were all busy with the fires. But every report that I've had is that Sherman Creek still has one gnarly section. Then the rest of it's just that general skinny trail with the big side hill. The Lolo Motorway is what it is. It's a big, long transfer section. It's the next thing you see as you move further north. Goes out through Green Saddle, Sherman Peak, all that stuff. If you move a little bit to the east, you can head out. Let me find it here. Where am I looking here? Yep. What's the name of this junction? Yeah, Peat Forks. At Peat Forks, which you can get to from the north or the south along the Lolo Motorway, you have an option that we sent a lot of people along last year. In fact, I think we sent just about everybody this way last year, where you go out Beaver Dam Saddle, go across Lean-To Ridge, head down to Wietus Creek, go past the Wietus Guard Station. Then there's a really cool single-track trail that takes you out to the Pierce Superior Road, which is a big major dirt road that goes through the area. What you can do if you want is you can take the Wietus Trail once you get there, back up to the Lolo Motorway, and that trail is actually a really good trail. Now, full disclosure, it's been 12 years since I've ridden it. But the last time I rode that trail, some of it's quad trail anyway, it was not a very difficult trail at all. But anybody that's listening tonight that has ridden that trail more recently than I have, feel free to chime in. But the last time I rode that trail, Wietta's Trail was not a very difficult trail at all. Follows a creek, and then once you get back up close to the Lolo, it turns into a quad trail for quite a ways. It's a nice trail. I remember really liking it. But it's a long booger. That trail is, you're in the woods for a long time once you're out there. Once you get back up to Half Mile Saddle, you also have some options. You can take the way that we've always done before, which is out Windy Ridge. And there's two ways you can go out Windy Ridge. You can continue all the way across Windy Ridge, go over Cook Mountain, and head back down to that Pierce Superior Road again. When the tour went from Lowell to Wallace in a single day, that was the way that we went for most of those years. You just rode Windy Ridge all the way out over Cook Mountain and hit that Pierce Superior Road, and then we took off to the north. But you have some options along that trail. There are a couple places you can dive off before that. You can take the solo route that we've taken for a few years, which is down Martin Creek. You can take that back around. You can access Lundy Ridge, which is on the tour now. It used to be the next day, but we put it on this day, and I think I even put a challenge point out there. If you want to go down that Martin Creek trail and then ride around Toboggan Hill, you can get to the Lundy Ridge Trail if you want to do that, or you can ride a little bit farther north along Windy Ridge, and you can actually hit the Windy Bill Trail. Now, the interesting thing about this Windy Ridge Trail is it's another one of these kind of places on the tour that I like to talk about every once in a while, where if you're trying to follow a line on your GPS, you're going to get lost because all the trail maps are wrong. The IDPR map's wrong. They're all wrong. That trail was rerouted many years ago. And there are enough remnants of the old trail there that a lot of people get sucked into it and you end up just riding into endless deadfall. But if you follow our waypoints, and as long as the trail's been sawed, sometimes that trail doesn't get sawed, the trail that goes up to Windy Bill, you'll be just fine. You can get up to Windy Bill. You can also get up to that Windy Bill saddle from the Junction Mountain Trail. You can access that from the Pierce Superior Road. That's a really nice trail. There's not a lot of difficulty in there. Either of those will take you up to Windy Bill, and then there's a waypoint. I think there's a challenge point up there. Then there's Switchback Hill. Switchback Hill is, the last time I rode it, I would consider that a one-way trail because riding down Switchback Hill is not much of an issue. But unless there's been some serious trail work done there, riding up it means you're riding up these really deeply rutted switchbacks, which I think would give a lot of people on a loaded tour bike a problem. Scurvy Saddle, getting up out of Scurvy Saddle, going to the north is a little bit of a problem, but it's been brushed. The biggest problem was deep ruts, and the trail had not been brushed, so it's overgrown deep ruts that you couldn't see. My understanding is that trail's been brushed, and people have reported to me recently that it's a lot easier to find. For years, it was difficult just to find where the trail tread was in that area. There is a waypoint up on Scurvy Mountain, which is a cool place to go visit. And I think, let me see. I think that about covers most of that stuff. So the remaining stuff is the stuff up on Pot Mountain. Now, once again, full disclosure, let me get over here. I haven't ridden all this Pot Mountain stuff that I put on, and the parts of it I have ridden, I rode 12 years ago. About 12 years ago, I went up there and I spent a 4-day weekend just riding as much of that stuff as I could. And that's my full experience with a lot of it. Some of that stuff I've ridden since then. The Anthill Trail I've ridden fairly recently. Sherman Creek I've ridden fairly recently. And Lundy Ridge I've ridden fairly recently. Windy Bill, Windy Ridge, that's all been within the last 5 years. But this Pot Mountain stuff is many, many, many years old. And what I remember about it was, now that Pot Mountain Trail especially will give you all that you want. That was a stud trail. So again, my knowledge is very old, and anybody that's ridden that more recently than I have is welcome to weigh in and tell me what you think about it. But people I know that are very, very good riders share the same opinion as I do of that trail, which is that it's a pretty substantial undertaking. So of all the trails in that area, Pot Mountain and Elizabeth Mountain are probably the ones that I would recommend the least. I would recommend all those other trails a lot more. And again, the difficulty is a little bit different on some of them, depending on whether you're going up or coming down. And I tried to indicate that a little bit in the route description. Yeah, Elizabeth Mountain is really technical. I haven't ridden very much of that. I rode just a little bit up at once. Hey, Sean, have you ridden Pot Mountain at all? And if so, how does it compare to Pot Mountain? We'll see if Sean's done that. But I know Pot Mountain was a real trail. Very, very technical, some side hilling issues on it, some places where you're really riding up some gnarly stuff. And on a fully loaded tour bike, I think it would give you all that you want. So that's my knowledge. That's the sum total of my knowledge of that day. Yeah, and those people weren't lying. When I got up on Pot Mountain, you could not have pulled a pin out of my ass with a tractor in a couple of spots. That is a really, really severe trail. That's why I didn't ride all of it. It gave me all I wanted before I had gotten all the way across. Everybody joins up at about the same spot. It's near a spot called the Cedars. And as I mentioned last week, the Cedars is a place where you can nearly always bum some gas. So you got about a 40-mile drone into Superior, but there's no gas. I mean, there is no gas anywhere between Elk City and Superior. So if you find yourself in the Cedars and you're running a little low on gas, the good news is once you get to the top of that pass, Hoodoo Pass up there, you can coast a lot of the way downhill into Superior. But it is a long way. You're not going to coast the whole way. So if you want to try to stop and beg or borrow some gas in the Cedars, I will tell you that I think that probably you'll be successful there. As I mentioned last week, I've never once failed to be able to get some gas at the Cedars. I've offered to pay for it. People won't let you pay. A lot of them know what the Tour of Idaho is, and they insist that you eat a cheeseburger while they're putting the gas in the bike for you. Every time I've ever been there, somebody has completely filled my tank at the Cedars and done it just due to goodwill. And then you're just going to take a long dirt road into Superior. Superior is where I would recommend that you stay. It's a bigger town than St. Regis. You will be going to St. Regis the next morning, though, so if that's where you want to stay, that's an okay choice. Let me see if I've got that at level 4 on my map. I really don't. I don't have the Montana maps. And then the next day is really easy to talk about. We could squeeze that in tonight because day 9 is all mystery day. If you get to St. Superior or St. Regis, wherever you decide to stay. And again, I recommend Superior. I think that you'll like it better there. We're going to tell you where to go from there. And I've ridden about half of what I know that Jim and another friend of mine, Andrew Hickson, are working on. And it's freaking phenomenal. It'll be one of everybody's favorite days of the tour. It goes from high ridges to deep woods, and there's just about every kind of riding that you can imagine in this day. And they have a challenge section that I haven't ridden, but I've heard it's reputed to be fairly stout. And then the next day, Day 13 from Wallace North hasn't changed in years. I'll talk about it a little bit on the next PBR Monday just so that we cover all the bases and go through all the days. But there's been no changes there. It's mostly a transfer section day. There is a challenge section, Independence Creek, which I put on as a challenge section just so that if you need a challenge section, if you get that far and you find out you're short a challenge section, Independence Creek is a pretty easy one. This year, I'm requiring soloists to do at least one challenge section, and Independence Creek might be a good one for you to do because it's really not that bad. I don't like it because it's just kind of a beater trail. It's all sort of whooped out. The creek crossings are eaten up and stuff. But in terms of the difficulty of challenge sections, based on the challenge sections we put on this year, it would probably be far and away the easiest one. So that's the one I would do if I were a soloist. When I go through challenge point rules, which I'm going to do on the next PBR Monday again in 2 weeks, we'll talk about, the difference between challenge points, challenge sections, bonus trails, the trails that are in purple, which are always the purple trails are there in case we have to reroute due to fire. So those are, I call those situational alternatives. In general, you're not supposed to ride those, but in case fires crop up or closures, those purple trails are trails that we've used in the past to route people around. And in areas where that's frequent, I put a lot of purple trails on there just so you have an idea if stuff's closed, this is a way you can go. But if stuff's open, you're not supposed to be on any of those. In terms of challenge sections, if for some reason you aren't able, like let's say you're on a team of 3, you're supposed to do 3 challenge sections. Something happens and you can't get all 3 of those challenge sections in. Probably 2 bonus sections would make up for a single challenge section. So there's always ways that we can barter a little bit on the point system to make sure you get it in. I hate seeing people show up 1 point short. And so every year there's somebody out there, and last year was a whole bunch of people going, man, I think Martin must be pissed off at me. In fact, I had one team say it through the PLB. Are you mad at us? No. What I don't want is you to be mad at me when you show up 1 point short. So what I'm going to tell you in all cases is I don't know what your point total is. You tell me that you've gotten this much, and I'll take you word. But, when I look at your nav, there's some rules. If you make a mistake, sometimes that costs you a point. You may have skipped a trail that you were unaware of. There's all kinds of reasons why you might get dinged a point. Hell, I can't do arithmetic that good to add those things up without a calculator when I'm as tired as I am by day 5 or 6 of the tour. So there's all kinds of reasons why you might come up a point short. And in the past, there have been people that have come up 1 or 2 points short, and I've said, I'm sorry, there's nothing that I can do for you. And so I stick to that standard. That's why I tell people you should make sure that you have more than the minimum number of points for your team size. Make sure that you get the ones, and be smart about it. Poach the ones that are easy, and we'll go through that when we go through the point system a little bit. All right. If anybody has any questions here, now's the time to ask them. I'll make a few more closing remarks. I'm going to get out of here tonight because we've gone way long. Once again, I want to thank Jeff and Jim for joining me. I have a ton of respect for both those guys. They're both good friends of mine. And in their own way, I think they have unique and very, very useful perspectives on the tour. Both of them are completely down-to-earth guys. Both of them are incredibly humble considering what they've been able to accomplish, both on the tour of Idaho and just in their lives in general. You don't get to do the things those guys have done without being a person of substance. Let's see. Day 5 shows 5 CPs for soloists, only 4 listed. I'll look into it and see what it's up. It's probably a mistake. But let me, I'll look at all that stuff again before we go through challenge points, and we'll figure it out. All right. This is the time of night where I tell you, and I tell you all this every week, you've wasted another perfectly good, this time 83 minutes with a complete knucklehead plus 2.5 or plus 2 this week. So I don't know why you all do it, but I really appreciate the fact that you do. It's getting down to nut cutting time, as we used to talk about back in the days when I was helping raise cattle. So really, now is the time to really start doubling down on your prep. In the past, we gave away more of the route than we do these days. And, so you kind of had a route to follow. And we would even encourage people to, make up your own track to follow from this data. We stopped doing that a few years ago, but as Jeff told you, that makes map study even more essential now. Now, you can't do map study for the mystery sections because we want you to get there. And as Jim Spooner said very eloquently tonight, you're just going to live in the moment. You're going to get there and the directions are going to be, okay, you're here, go here. Do what it says, go there. Figure out how to get from where you're at to where you're going on all these mystery sections. We're going to give you, in most of the, except for the special nav section, it's going to be really simple. In some cases, I'll send you a map, and I'm going to send you a set of trail numbers and say, this is where you're going to go. Ride about 10 miles down this dirt road and look for this trail. Take it. We did that last year on what was then day 9, and people loved it. They just said this was some of the highest adventure of the tour. So we're going to do it for all this new stuff that we added this year, and I think that you all will enjoy the heck out of it. some of these tour vets that are bugging me for where the mystery sections are, I'm going to give these guys some of this data and I'm going to send them out. Sean and Sam and some of these other guys that are like Pastor B, I want to know where this new stuff is. I'm gonna do it, but then I'm gonna make you come on PBR Monday and without telling everybody where it is, talk about your impressions of it, which I think will whet everybody's appetite, because I have no doubt that many of you are going to say these are the coolest trails I have ever ridden in my life, and I did not comprehend it was possible to ride dirt bikes in places like this. They're pretty awesome trails, and it's putting the final touches on what I always wanted the tour to be. So, again, thanks for wasting an hour with me. I will see you in 2 weeks on PBR Monday number 10 for spring 2022. We'll go through the whole challenge point thing. We'll run down all that. We'll talk about tour rules and stuff, and then we'll take it from there. See y'all later. Cheers.